Hi, welcome to Clutter Bravado.
Yes, and it's the energy. It's not just about the stuff.
So we should probably just get into it, right?
Let's go.
Good afternoon, Laurent.
Good morning, Elyse.
How are you? Oh, it's afternoon.
No, already?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
You know what? This has been happening to me a lot lately. I've been sleeping in and then showing up here a little bit late.
Oh, is that what it is? Because I did get up this morning,
Yeah?
went to the gym.
Can I say something?
Please do.
You look good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Also, I like this color on you. If you're only listening to this episode, you're missing out because Laurent looks great today.
Yeah, I feel good.
Good.
It was a good weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
What
What did
about
you
yours?
do?
Tell me about yours.
Okay. I saw a movie,
What did you go see?
Mission
Oh,
Impossible.
I'm so jealous.
Okay, so I'm not going to spoil it for you, but long story short, it's awesome. Okay, it's so fun.
It's long, no?
Yes, it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes long. It is so fun. It is such a good movie experience. So here's the thing. When it comes to movies, I love an intellectual film. Okay, I do. I like something that's going to make you think. I like something that's incredibly well written. I like a really subtle, nuanced performance in an actor. None of those things were present in this film. Okay, this is not a deep. I mean, there were levels to it. Okay, as much as there can be in a Mission Impossible film, but there was also Tom Cruise floating in zero G's between two wings of an airplane in the sky. Oh my God, it was so cool. It was really fun. There's a sequence that's completely impossible in the middle, but that's the thing.
Does he die at the end?
I can't tell you that.
Oh. All right.
You think I'm going to spoil the film for you?
No.
Let me rephrase. You think I'm going to spoil the movie for you? This is not a film. This is a movie, and it is everything you want in a movie. It's such a good time.
I do love Tom Cruise. I think that he's one of the last movie star that we have. I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he's one of the last real movie stars we have.
Yeah.
That just is, larger than life. So
I agree. I'm a big fan of the Mission Impossible franchise. And so this was just like such a joy. It was super fun. I had a great time. What are some other things? What are some things that happened this weekend or that are going on that you've been paying attention to?
I read a very cool article that I shared with you about our dear friend Ken Folk.
Oh, Ken Folk,
in
yes.
the New York Times. Wow. Congratulations, Mr. Folk. And
It was a really glowing representation of him.
And you know what I loved is, with the conversation about AI that's going to replace all of us and blah, 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 blah. I love the fact that there are designers that they're not going to be replaced by
There's
an
no
AI.
way. Yeah.
And, we've interviewed quite a few of them, and maybe I'm, again, deadly wrong, but I feel like when you listen to some of our interviews, when you read the article about Ken, there's creativity, there's magic, there's something that comes out of us that cannot be duplicated in a computer. And that, I don't know, somehow that made me really happy.
Yeah. I also, in reading that article, something that stood out to me is his personal style. He's been dressing himself since he was 6. He has this aesthetic that is his, that belongs to him. And he gets to share that with his clients. And I love that when you've created a style, you've created an aesthetic, a look that is so uniquely yours, then when people hire you, they want you to share that part of yourself with them in their lives. And I think there's something really special about that. And obviously there are designers that are chameleons that are able to like sort of, if you want an entirely beige room, they can make it incredible. If you want something maximalist, they can do that too. But what I really like about Ken Folk is that while it is very much in the maximalist style, people seek that out. And people are actively seeking that out. And he is able to provide something that is telling a little bit of their story. And he said that the first thing that he starts with, just like in a movie, is he starts with a script. And that was super inspiring to me. I really like the idea of when you're walking into a new space, that the first thing for me that I would love to see, that I don't yet, but that I would love to see, is the story of what happens here, or what will happen here, or what you want to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, writing that script when you first get started, I think is such a fascinating way to look at interior design. And that's going to be sticking with me today for sure.
It was interesting because it was, the article was glowing. It was, I mean, I do respect Ken's point of view very, very much. He had his store, I mean, it's not his store, but his office right around the corner from me in San Francisco when we first started.
Right, yeah.
And I remember going to his office, and he had a living space on, I don't know, the third floor, I think. And you should have seen his wardrobe. It was all in bags with photos of I mean, it was incredible. It just, gave you the biggest, whatever that's called, like you wanted that, it's like, but to achieve it was Ken's. So that was really fun. And then after that, another article caught my eye, and it was a little bit what we
Are you
talked
talking about the Rococo one?
The Rococo one. God, it was funny because there's more and more done by, Ken Folk or Mary McDonald, or it's good more and more. And then there's more and more at the White House that, okay, so from a personal standpoint, that I've done a lot of antiques. 17th and 18th century up to 1850, I'm a big fan. I mean,
well, not just a big fan. You are an expert, and you've taught me a ton about that.
But
I feel like actually you should probably have an episode to yourself explaining the history of 18th and 19th century
I don't want
French
to bore
furniture.
everybody.
No, it's actually the way you shared it with me. It was genuinely interesting. But continue.
And there's one period that I've never been able to get into. It's Napoleon III. It's that Rococo copy of earlier style that's just not freaking tasteful. And it's funny because the clientele when I was growing up, the clientele for all that furniture were, some were Russians, some were Saudis and the Middle East. And now it's at the White House. I never would have imagined that. Not in 2025. It's very strange. So it's, from a personal standpoint, and that's just, it's apolitical. I mean, it's really a taste. It's like, it's a design thing that I'm like, where are we going with that? In a country, again, where I think we have so many talented furniture designers, so many talented artists to promote, to support. And that's not, to me, that's not what I would be putting.
Yeah. I think that would be an incredible thing if you are in such a leadership role, and like you are the leader of the free world, and you have a space that you get to sort of put your touch on. I think a way that would show honor for the people that you represent would be to invite the people, the artists, the makers, the people who are creating things, and letting them sort of come in and create something. Like in that article, it says there are mirrors now on the side of the mantle, so that when you're standing in front of it, it looks like you are one of the great
Painters. I don't know. It's
one of the great presidents of history. And, I feel like there is a way to do it that's really tasteful and beautiful.
And I think that, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I think that also, when I came to this country 30 years ago, like the food industry and the food talent was really nascent. I mean, it's, most of the good restaurants were French chefs or Italians. Fashion was non-existent unless it was a European brand, besides for, Ralph Lauren. And art and furniture was also, it was very much like the craze of the French or the Italians. I get that. 30 years later, that thing has changed tremendously. We have incredible American chefs, from Thomas Keller to Grant Achatz to, people like Carbone to, incredible American chefs. We're starting to have American designers, fashion designers.
Absolutely.
So can we just take the history of the United States, nurture that, and add an American twist to it and promote that part?
I feel like there were previous presidents that did that very well.
I don't, I'm not quite familiar with that, but I know that is just not, it's just not supporting. I don't get it. And we need it.
Yeah.
Like we need the support for the art. I'm sorry, but we need it. Same way as freaking Tom Cruise is supporting movies and, but we need that. We need that aspect. It cannot be just about business. It's got to be about something larger than that. And part of it should start from the top. And I think that, be it gastronomy, be it fashion, be it style, be it art, just let's get supportive of the small businesses, the artists. That's what we do in France. In France, it's like you look at the Elyse, which is an 18th century building. It is kept as such. It is, revered as such. But there's an impact of a new artist. I mean, the Olympics, we have
Thierry
Lemaire did The Office for President Macron. He did a beautiful job. That is the state supporting art and artists and movies. And I think that it would be so good if
we did that here.
Yeah. It would be so good.
Yeah.
Sports is great. I love sports. We support sports. I adore it. But I think that we neglect
the arts,
We neglect the arts.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents. But
I appreciate that. And in a lot of ways, art these days has become so commodified that unless you're creating something that is of extremely, extremely high value, then your work as an artist isn't valued anywhere, really. It's really hard to find an outlet for that and, to find a market for that. Like we don't have patrons the way that we once did as artists.
Right.
But I want to sort of lead that into something else that you and I have talked about starting, which I'm very excited about, which is the Artist's Way. So I've done this before. So it is a 12-week sort of self-help program, but not in the way that is insufferable, like a lot of self-help programs can be. It's instead something that's really actionable, that's really fun, and that I've done before, where there are 3 different things that you are doing every single day for 12 weeks. And so one of them is waking up and writing 3 pages as soon as you wake up. It's your morning pages.
3 pages?
Yeah. Here's the thing you can do, though. You can get a smaller notebook. And that's what I did. I got a nice small notebook, a reasonable size one. I wouldn't go with one of those big spiral notebooks because that is a lot of writing. So it's morning pages. It is artist dates. So taking yourself out to a museum, to a gallery, to a musical performance. You're taking your inner artist out on a date, basically.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then the other one is a creative contract that you make with yourself. So it's that, but it's also like these deeper levels of like addressing your inner critic and recognizing where these limiting beliefs come from. And it's a really good way of shedding all of the things that are holding you back from allowing yourself to be your most creative. And when I did it before, I ended up writing an album. So like, putting out an album, which was really cool. And I'm glad that I got to do it, but I never would have gotten to that point of creativity and allowing myself to do it had I not actually gone through this work. So I don't plan on making an album this time. I've been noticing personally, like that I'm being held back by a lot of my own limiting beliefs. For example, what I'm capable of creating, how much time I have, how much energy I have to create something. And as you know, and as most people who listen to the show know, I wear a lot of hats. I have a lot of things that I'm trying to juggle all of the time. And I hit a wall when it came to being creative, where I was thinking about this, like, I don't know if I have the time to sit down and do the thing that I love to do because I'm so busy trying to juggle all of these other outlets that I've had before. Like, what do I let go of and what do I polish? But you're going to do it with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, 12 weeks.
Easy.
When you see, I think that you need to go on YouTube in 12 weeks. I'll have long hair, a scarf.
Sorry?
I
Long
will be
hair?
speaking like that, smoking again. What? That's the only image of an
Okay,
artist I can have.
Oh, I see. So your image of an artist is specifically beatnik. Are you going to have a weird ponytail?
I can't. I'm losing my hair. It's not going to happen.
No, there are lots of men who are losing their hair that have ponytails. I've seen them. And they usually are artists too.
Okay.
It happens.
All right. Well,
If you feel like it, you can.
If I feel like it.
I saw on
during the
TikTok-
12 weeks process, you never know.
I saw on TikTok that it is rat tail summer. So
What's that?
you
Well,
used to
one
have
thing that could go, first thing that could go is TikTok. No, just kidding. Okay, let's not talk about that.
No,
that's
I know.
Just like that's. So,
Oh, I know.
Rat tail. What's rat tail?
Rat tail?
Yeah.
You used to have one.
Oh, the little thing is coming back?
The little braid in the back of your hair that you can...
It's coming back.
It's coming back. It's had many comebacks in the past few years, but it's rat tail summer. So
I think I'm going to just let that summer trend go.
you're not going to do it this year?
No.
No?
No. I think it's going to be just no.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fair. That's fair. There was something else. Oh, my race is next Saturday. So if you're listening to the episode next week, I will have run a half marathon. This is the last episode before I run it. Before I run for 13.1 miles for the first time. Oh my gosh, I'm so scared.
It's an achievement. Be proud.
Yes. And I've done 12. I've done 10. I have been consistent in my training. I know that I have all of the tools to be able to do it well and do it properly, but gosh, is it scary anyway.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
But the adrenaline that day is going to just carry you.
For sure.
Carry you all the way to the finish line.
Oh, also I'm going to wear a cute outfit. So a cute outfit will carry me through anything. And my mom is going to be in town. So, you get to meet my mom.
Yeah, I'm gonna meet your mom.
That'll be cool. But my mom is going to be here to support me for my run. And I'm really excited about the whole thing. Also, if anyone is listening to this and you do run and you have any notes for me, please email me because I'm accepting any and all notes, input, suggestions, any of it. I'll take it. clutterbravado@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. Anyway, we have to get to our guest.
Yep.
So our guest this week is David Dalton. I loved having him on. I have met him. I met him like a year ago when I think it was the first dinner party that I came to here. He was there. Yeah. And I was so intimidated by him because he's so smart. And he has had such an incredibly successful career over 3 decades. He's brilliant. And getting to know him more like over time, I just absolutely adore him. He was a gem to have on the show. And do you have anything you want to
No,
add?
I mean, obviously, David and I, we've been friends for many, many years, and it was a privilege to have him with us. I love the interview.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, should we get to it?
Let's go.
Welcome to Clutter Bravado. We are here with David Dalton. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Great to be here with you.
Really happy to have you here. So I met you probably like a year ago, and you're one of the first designers that I met. And I was so intimidated by you at first. You have so much wisdom and so much experience, like 30 years of experience as a designer.
More than that.
More than that. I love
we'll
it.
Leave it at 30 years.
Yeah, that's close enough.
So when you got started, though, you didn't plan on being an interior designer.
No, I went to school for film and thought that I was going to do art direction. Mm-hmm. And then I did it for a couple of years, and then I just didn't feel like that group of people was my tribe.
So how did you end up in interior design from there?
Through the back door, really. There was a designer who lived across the street from me when I was living in Pasadena, still going to school, and it was slow one summer, and I was looking for work, and he said, well, you can come work for me. And one of the first jobs I did with him was a huge installation for a massive house that was in Arcadia, and it was impressive to me. I was in my early 20s, and I remember thinking, wow, this is so dramatic, way more dramatic than any film set I had been on, but it was real. I liked that aspect of it, that it wasn't, it wasn't a thing that you could just tip over at the end of the day, or that was going to get broken down after we were finished. It was a living set.
Yeah.
And that really did end up kind of informing what the rest of my design career ended up being like, because I really still do view what I do as building stage sets for people.
Yeah. That's an interesting way of looking at it, because when you're at home, your environment, it incubates whatever you want to become. So like how you want to live your life and the kind of energy that you want to flow in your home, the design has so much to do with it. And so you get to also kind of create a story for people too.
It's true.
Yeah.
It starts with a story just like it always starts with a script. But it's true not just of residential interiors. It's really true of commercial spaces too. I do a lot of office spaces, or even when it's hotel work. It's still the same thing. The story informs the story, or script informs what the space should look and feel like, right down to the lighting.
Yeah.
And that really does determine how you end up living out, whether it's working or living. It ends up really determining how you experience that space. And so whether it's an office or a residence, I still feel like I'm building sets for meaningful lives to live out on.
Wow.
So because you've had a short career of, and you have a very eclectic style, and you've done a lot, both commercial and residential, how do you approach that with a new client? How do you formulate your style?
I consider having an eclectic style actually a compliment.
Right.
Because I never wanted to impose my own personal taste on anyone else. It's impossible that it doesn't enter in some way into the process, but it really isn't about me. The spaces I'm designing are either about the client, or they're about the architecture, or they're about the light that's available. They're about everything else but me. So I'm at the end of that line. I will infuse design elements that are pleasing, and perhaps pleasing to me, but I try very hard to make the work that I do not a reflection of my own personal taste or style.
That's really interesting. So I have a question when it comes to that. I was looking at your portfolio, and you have this one room that really stands out to me, and it is a child's room.
Okay.
And it has a tree and a rug that looks like grass.
Exactly.
And this very old like desk area with chickens, and just like it has it's this really eclectic space. And I want you to tell me the story of that space in particular. How did you come up with an idea like that?
Well, I love doing kids' rooms because they can be fantasy and they can be thematic. That room was for a 5-year-old boy whose life was not easy, and I think having a space where he could go to that was another world was important. In the setting that he was growing up in, to me, I interpreted as that being important. So we literally built him a set that could allow his imagination to go wild. And we used reclaimed wood siding to make what looked like an old log cabin. We built this huge tree. It was filled with toys. We did a custom carved bed for him.
Wow.
The green shag carpeting really was like grass. In fact, he used to call us the grass guys. When we'd show up for a presentation, he'd run around the house screaming, "The grass guys are here."
That's really cute. And especially if you if you get a chance to, if you're listening to this, definitely check out the website for daviddaltoninc.com.
Exactly.
And there are so many beautiful, just really fun examples of your design work, especially in kids' rooms. But also there is a section for private playing.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And also you've done a lot of commercial work and restaurants. I mean, your catalog, your portfolio is so diverse when it comes to the sorts of places that you've designed. So since you started off in a home, what was it like to move into a different sort of space, like moving into commercial or moving into restaurants? How was that transition?
I've always really enjoyed the combination of both commercial and residential work. And there were times when it became a financial necessity because if the residential market might have been lagging, the commercial might have been stronger, and vice versa. So I don't know that it was really intentional. It became a survival technique, really. But I've always enjoyed that the disciplines of working in commercial are very different than the more emotional process that most people engage in while designing residential interiors. And that really helped to create more discipline in my office because those projects are very methodical and programmatic. And that was a good thing. That is always a good thing for any design office, because there were things that we needed to learn, to understand, to evolve. And those things are typically more associated with the commercial work we do. It kept me on my toes, really.
Yeah. How is it working with the commercial client versus the residential client? Because you're in a commercial space, you're working for, yes, the client, the owner, but also for all of their clientele, for everyone who's going to be coming in.
It's just a less emotional process.
Got it.
Really. People, when they're imagining their physical environment and it's their personal physical environment, there tend to be a lot more abstract considerations that most people don't really dissect or try to figure out, but questions of self-worth and deserving, of ego, of entitlement, those things really come to play when you're defining somebody's physical environment. That can be a messy process for some. It can be an awkward and uncomfortable process for others. And that's really not part of the dynamic on a commercial job. So they're just more straightforward.
How do you get to be creative in a commercial? Because I see some lobbies or where, there's major artwork, or, is that something that you push or you get to?
I always felt that if I did it right, I could bring a higher sense of sensibility into a commercial project, and I could bring a more practical sensibility from the commercial work into the residential projects that I did. They both really complement each other. They both really overlap in very interesting ways. And when recently we were doing several multi-unit low-income housing for homeless seniors, and we did a shelter for abused families experiencing domestic violence. And it was very interesting to see how we could translate what might be the sensibility of a more luxurious environment and imprint that onto a low-income 320 square foot single apartment. And I believe we did that successfully, and it was something I felt really good about and felt really proud of, because we figured out ways to break down the design so that we could communicate more cerebral elements into that environment, which typically are very institutional.
Yeah. That's really beautiful, and I think that is something that's really necessary too, because when you're either getting on your feet or finally settling into a place, you don't want it to feel cold or feel like you have to put all of this extra work into making it feel homey when you get to walk into it and it feels like home already. And something that, like you were talking about, self-worth. And that's not something that we've had anyone mention before when you're working with clients. Their concept of what it is that they deserve. Can you go into that a little bit deeper?
If they don't mention it, It's only because they haven't really analyzed it.
Yeah.
And it is always a factor. It's always a dynamic on some level. Most people don't talk about it because they probably don't understand it very well. Personally, I've been in therapy for so long that I understand the process, and with each of the situations that have happened to me, the challenging situations over the years, it was an opportunity to go inside and learn more about myself and what those triggers were in watching other people learn how to deal with their own ideas of self-worth and deserving in the process of creating their physical environment. So I could only steer people and help them to the degree that I understood it myself. So it became early on a very important thing for me to see clearly so that the design work could respond more clearly to what I knew people couldn't quite articulate well themselves.
Yeah, can you give me an example of that, or like how that has played out, either with a client or like a hypothetical client, but what that looks like in actual practice?
Sure.
Okay.
Because it's not a thing that I think lightly about. It's something that I take very seriously.
Yeah.
And if I really believed that what I was engaged in on a daily basis was as superficial as design appears to be, then I couldn't do it. But I really believe that I have a mission, self-described and self-appointed, but I believe I have a mission to bring people to where they need to go, even if they can't articulate exactly where that is. So in the process of designing somebody's environment, I listen very carefully to how they want to feel in that space, not what they want it to look like, because although that looks like it's the primary concern, it's way down the list. Really, it's about how do you want it to feel? How do you want to experience it? How do you define hospitality? How do you take care of other people in your space? Is cooking important? Is entertaining important? Is reading important? All the things that need to happen, need to get planned for. And in that process, I try to listen to what people infer, what they can't quite articulate clearly, and interpret that, and that becomes my mission, trying to build in the possibility for more enlightenment in somebody else's life gives me a great sense of satisfaction and purpose.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I've been lucky to go to, you're one of the few designers, I mean, first of all, a big part of our design community, but you also throw some amazing dinner parties and very, very chic. And so it's interesting because that's one of the first things that came to, that came to your mind when you were talking about, how the client wants to live. Do they cook? Do they entertain? Which is a big part of what I do, obviously, so that's where we relate. How do you approach that with a client? Because it feels like so many people right now are, eating out and not really knowing how to use their space to entertain. Do you help that?
That's a great question and something that I've thought a lot about. Not everybody feels the same way about how they want to take care of other people,
Right.
or how they want to show their benevolence or their love to somebody else. You love people through food,
Right.
and it's very clear when somebody comes to your house that they're going to have a great culinary experience. And that's really important, how to set the stage so that a great culinary experience can be enjoyed is not something that you couldn't do unless you really thought about it. You would have to plan all the elements so that they would be in place so that that could happen. What does that mean? That means the lighting needs to be a certain way and needs to be a certain color temperature because people feel more comfortable and relaxed in an environment with warmer light than they do with colder blue light. You would want to make sure that the seating prior to sitting at the dining table was congenial for conversation, so that by the time the people ended up at the table, they all felt in some way connected. These are not random things. These are what make a space successful, and any designer worth their salt has considered these things and understands how to orchestrate all of those elements together in an environment.
Yeah. I think you definitely succeed in doing that here too. That's something that I've noticed
it's something that we share.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an element that we both share. So it's
Right.
interesting because when I walk in someone's, I mean, when I walk in someone's home, my instinct is, how do they entertain? What do they do? And sometimes people could care less. I mean, we went to a couple of houses where the kitchen is the size of a football field, and then the dining room is for 4 people. And I'm like, this is not what I would have done, but I have to be able to be open to the fact that, people are so different. It's interesting.
And so you have a round table, and I love a round table because it's very congenial. It encourages conversation. I have a long table because that's my dining room will fit, but I wasn't going to move into a place where my 12-foot dining table didn't fit, because I love having a group of 10 or 12 people all engaged in the same lively dialogue, and that's only possible when you can plan to have a table big enough to do that. If it was 4 people, it's a very different conversation than a table that seats 12. And a table that seats 12 in a linear way is very different. The conversation is very different than a table that seats 12 in the round.
Yeah.
So these things are all important parts of making it work right.
Moving into, you're talking about entertaining and what it's like to have guests in the home. And I'm curious too about some of the clients that you've had, especially like during the pandemic and when things become a little bit more insular, where they're just going to be in the home, not having a lot of guests over. What are some, I guess, not necessarily trends, but some things that you've noticed that they're looking for more of these days?
Well, I noticed people looking for more flexible space.
Okay.
And this is a thing that I could say directly as a result of COVID, because COVID forced us into situations that were new to most people. So the question of, does your home really work, became a kind of critical question. And most people found out that it didn't work to the optimal, and they needed to make adjustments in the space. So there was a lot of work directly following COVID in altering spaces so that they could be more flexible. Can I use that garage space now as an office? Can I use the rooftop for a garden? Can I use the outdoor space as my office? All of these became questions that we didn't really ask before, but I moved my office to my home during COVID, and then I wondered, why did I not do this before? I love working at home, and it really forced me to understand how to make the spaces flexible.
Yeah.
If you're going to use your home as your office, then can the dining room serve as your conference room? Can the kitchen be a meeting space? It really does work that way. And I think now we're all looking at how do we get everything in one space, because space is more expensive, it's harder to get. So the luxury of lofty space isn't available to everybody. So how do we make things more flexible?
Yeah.
That's really been an interesting challenge that has also translated into the commercial work too, because how do we make office spaces more flexible as people are doing other things in their offices besides working at a desk? Almost every office I've done recently has a sort of step and repeat backdrop that can be used to film their social media.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The evolution of things is interesting, and it's what make sure that there's always going to be work.
Yeah.
I also feel that in offices, I mean, the people want to have more of a residential environment, like the office space
Absolutely.
that no one wants to go back to. Every office seems to want to have a more residential feel, I guess.
Well, that's definitely true, because if you still did have to go into your office, you would think, how can I make this more comfortable, like when I was working at home, or when I can spend those 2 days a week working remotely, how can I bring that same sensibility into the more rigid office environment? So everything is kind of crossed over now.
And it's interesting also, I mentioned to you that the little cafe, there's an office building next door, and the little cafe was, the original one was probably from the 70s. Had not been touched. I mean, nothing had been touched. But they reopened it, and there are 2 sofas, there's coffee tables, there's space for people to lounge, and it's really interesting because it's a typical office building cafe, and now they have to step it up and I think that I suspect that for most office building, that's going to be the trend, to have either like a space for entertainment or, a better cafe, better food, healthier.
Well, the WeWork spaces really changed the way offices get set up now.
Right.
And having a more communal area, making the lunchroom less of a lunchroom and maybe double as a meeting space for smaller groups. Turning the conference room into a dining hall. All of those things really came from this new definition of how people want to experience life post-COVID.
Yeah. So I want to pivot a little bit into something that's a little bit more personal to you. You're a big traveler. And I have been sort of stalking your Instagram, as I do with all of our guests. But something that I've noticed about your travel is that you find so much inspiration wherever you go. And so I'm curious about what your process is when you are picking where you choose to travel and how you glean inspiration from each of those places.
So the travel thing really, it's one of the greatest joys in life for me. And I feel really blessed that I was able to have work that allowed me to travel. And it wasn't really by accident, because I really do think that I manifested that by focusing on it. I remember being in Paris a while back, and it was my second trip that year, and I was so loving the mood and energy of the city that on the way back to the airport after the second trip, I thought to myself, I want to be here more, and not as a tourist. I want to work here.
Yeah.
And I swear it wasn't even an hour later, while waiting in the airport, I got a phone call for a job offer in Paris.
Wow.
I didn't end up getting that job, but 2 weeks after that, I got another offer for a job in Paris, and I did end up shortly after that working. And I remember the feeling one day when I was sitting in a cafe thinking, I did that.
Okay, that's great. I mean, also, anytime that I'm in Paris, I also have that same feeling, but I guess I'm just not manifesting as hard as you are. I also, Paris is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and it does have that energy that's different than the United States. Like, being here, I feel like we're so focused on work and success and making enough money, and we tend to have this very sort of like goal-oriented way of living. And there's so much more pleasure in the day-to-day,
The Parisians have mastered a thing that I so admire and respect about them. There's a striving for perfection that ends up in all things, whether it's food preparation or food presentation, whether it's craft, and that could be anything from carving to gilding to ironwork. There's an obsession with perfection that shows up everywhere you go in Paris, and it makes the experience of the result of that labor for anybody who's fortunate enough to stand in that environment where those things exist, it makes the experience of it a really brilliant and enjoyable thing. Because
Yeah.
where else has somebody obsessed about beauty to the degree that they could create an environment so exquisite?
Yeah. That is something that I don't know if it's like a striving for perfection. I feel like from my perspective, and I think that there's space for both of these here, I think that it's also it's taking pleasure in doing something well.
Yeah.
And not doing it, not trying to be the best at something. It doesn't feel competitive. It feels like there's so much pride and honor in everything that they're doing. And again, yeah, whether it comes from making a great cup of coffee, you know, to some of the best architecture in the world and some of the greatest furniture in the world, there's honor in it.
It exists in very few places.
Yeah.
And when you do have the privilege of being able to travel a lot, it's very clear that most cultures are not engaged in that pursuit of beauty and perfection. And the cultures who have been, we all know, it's why you could go to Italy 1,000 times and never get tired of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been to Paris and Italy, as we've spoken about. What is an unexpected place that you've traveled where you found inspiration that you didn't expect to find?
I had a project for many years in Oxford, England. And because there was multiple phases of construction and I was back and forth for 13 years, it was an entire chapter of my life that existed there. And it's a time warp, Oxford. It's like dialing the clock backwards. So little has changed in that city in so many hundreds of years that it feels preserved. And there's something about being in an atmosphere like that where the past is honored, and especially coming from Los Angeles, where the past...
There's no past here.
Yeah. No.
Nothing's
It's
older
only
than
the
7 years
current
here.
moment. It's true.
Yeah.
It becomes something that I really enjoyed, but also that I looked for. I just so looked forward to spending time in a place where there was a reverence for the past, for the architecture of the past, for the learning and knowledge of the past. And Oxford's very much about that. And I do consider the time that I spent there a little immersion in that appreciation and honor of where we came from.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting because I was reminded that the Olympic Games are coming to LA.
Right.
And it's going to be interesting to see what choices they make. Are we like banking on the future, or are we introducing a little bit of what our culture that LA culture that exists? Do we
Which face do we put forward?
I know.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to see, because Paris was very much with culture and beauty and art, and it's like it's going to be interesting to decide what they are going to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That's in a few more years, right? We've got
That's
3.
3 more years.
Oh,
It's going to go by.
Well, I want to know when they're going to clean it all up so that it looks ready.
So that it looks nice.
Yeah, that's going to be another topic. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the image of LA becomes in 3 years.
Yeah. Well, if it's anything like what the face that Paris put forward for the last Olympics, that was something really beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it really was.
I think that was probably the most successful Olympics, because even the Parisians can't complain about it. So it's gotta be up there.
How they wove in the culture and history into what was happening with the games was so fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they raised the bar a little bit. We'll see what we do here.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. So I want to ask you, like, just going into one other little element of your career that I find really interesting. And that's because, I'm still kind of a pop culture girly at the end of the day. You've had a few celebrity clients, have you not?
I have.
Can you talk about any of your experiences? If you can't, that's okay. But we just, if you have anything that you wanted to throw out there in your experience working with celebrity clients.
It's a cachet that most designers want to have under their belt. They want to be able to say they have the list of celebrity clients. If you're working in Los Angeles, it's kind of expected of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely the school of hard knocks because everything difficult that you could encounter in a project, you would encounter with a celebrity client.
Okay. Tell me more.
I would say communication is, communication is always top of the list. And working abroad really taught me that communicating has to be cross-cultural. It can't just be your choice or selection of words. You have to be responsible on every level for how what you communicate is perceived. And that's sort of an interesting thing that circles back to the celebrity clients, because sometimes celebrities don't communicate directly. They communicate through their different handlers, whether it's business manager or assistant. And so you have to kind of learn how to read what's being said through the words and see if you can get to the real meaning or intention behind that, which is not always so clear.
Yeah.
If you're a celebrity client, the personal assistant is your best friend.
Yeah? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So that can be tricky at
Yeah.
times. The communication part's definitely tricky. The setting the stage again for people whose lives are bigger than normal, and whose considerations are not the same as most people's. I did a project for a client where it was necessary to plan the space so that a party of 1,000 people could be accommodated in their backyard in a way that would still feel intimate and comfortable.
Wow.
That's not always easy.
Yeah, that's a hell of a demand.
But it was part of that. It becomes part of that world of celebrity design that is necessary to understand that it's not like this is everyday life. Like you and I are sitting around the table. It's different.
Yeah.
What was interesting for me was the scheduling part, because I tend to look at them, or there's this thing where it's like, who do you think you are? But at the end of the day, their work schedule is insane. They'll shoot all night, they'll record all night, they travel and back and forth, and you have to really manage your time so that it fits theirs, because I've had two experiences working with two people, and it's like, you can't show up at 10 because they were recording all night, because suddenly they were creative and they went to sleep at 6 a.m. and they call, the personal assistant calls you, be like, no, they can't see you. And you have to be so open and understand, without having lived that life,
Right.
that, they're not being difficult. It's just that suddenly, last night was a good night, and they recorded until 6 o'clock. It was really, that part was really interesting, to stay open-minded and not take it personally. That was kind of fun.
In my office, we say all the time that the work we do is relatively simple. It's the scheduling that's hard.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But again, the considerations that you would have for somebody whose life might be lived at that pace would be, how do I create sanctuary for somebody who lives their life on a public stage. It's an important consideration because you would want to know, how do you create a space for somebody that gives them a warm embrace when the majority of their life is lived on a public stage?
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I haven't really thought of, actually, that when you are out in public, obviously you want to have a more serene home, but you get to really, really create that environment for them.
Right.
Yeah, that little incubation space where maybe their creativity is going to come from, but maybe it's a chance for their creativity to just shut down and everything to shut down so they can get some rest. Yeah.
Or maybe it's the space that inspires them to be more creative.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have an example of one of those that you've created? It doesn't, you don't have to, again, don't worry about dropping names, but but if you want to, you're always welcome to.
I really can't drop names because,
I know. That's fine. That's fine. But if you, like, what is a sanctuary space that you created? How would you describe it?
Well, again, breaking down what really makes people feel comfortable. It's not the same for everybody. Low lighting makes some people feel comfortable. It makes other people feel uncomfortable. Bright colors stimulate some people to feel more creative, and other people find it offensive. So other people, some people sleep in rooms that are like a cave where all the light's been blacked out and you'd wake up in total darkness not knowing what time of day it was. Other people want to wake up with the sunlight and don't want to have anything covering the windows. So the first thing is finding out what people really want, what's going to work for them, and then figuring out how to set the stage so that all those things that they either said or didn't say got included in that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, if they want to wake up with the sunlight, they need to listen to Oberman Lab and no, you don't.
Wait.
You have blackout. Well, he goes out in the sun after a cold plunge, a massage, a sauna.
Oh no! I thought that his whole thing was that within the first 15 minutes of being awake, you need direct sunlight in your eyes.
Right, but you need to sleep. You need to sleep in a dark
total
room.
darkness.
Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't work in London then.
Right.
You might not
They
see
have
the sun for
lamps and
weeks.
stuff for that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we're starting June gloom
we
here.
are. Yeah. June gloom is starting a little bit
Starting-
early this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be challenging to see the sunlight for the first 15 minutes here.
Yeah.
So there are 3 questions that we ask all of our guests, and I'm going to close up with this. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Did I send them to you?
No.
Oh.
Look
Un-
at you.
I may have,
Unrehearsed.
but okay, unrehearsed. So our 3 questions. Number 1, what is the messiest place in your home?
Most of the drawers.
Okay. Is there one in particular that you're thinking of?
Doesn't every house have a junk drawer? There has to be a
There's
place where
2.
you just go,
There's batteries, phone chargers, chapstick.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
receipts that you don't know if you need or not. Thrown in
yeah.
there.
The back of my car looks like that sometimes.
Yeah. I get that. Okay, second question. When you walk into a space for the first time, what is the first thing that you notice?
Usually lighting. I'm uber sensitive to lighting and don't like restaurants that are overly lit or too brightly lit or lit by 3,500 Kelvin light bulbs.
Yeah.
I go to great lengths to tune environments to the right color temperature, which is a thing that most people could never articulate if they were in a space, but they would know they felt embraced. They would know they felt warmed by lighting that was tuned to the right color temperature.
Your place is a perfect example of that. You walk in and it's just like,
Oh, wow.
with a lot with lighting, yeah.
Wow.
Not by accident.
No, I'm
because
sure it's
I
not.
could show you photographs that illustrate that better. I could show you here's what you don't want to do, and here's how, if you're careful, you can do it. And you look at a photograph, and even not stepping into the room, but even looking at that photograph, you would just go, I
Right.
want to be there.
I like that. We've had a few people answer that, but not with that much detail. I appreciate that so much. Okay, my last question for you is, what is your favorite space either in your home or that you've designed? Whatever comes to mind first.
That would be the bed.
Oh, yeah?
A bed's no accident,
Yeah.
right? If your bed is a good bed, if it's comfortable to you, if it's a place where you consider to be sanctuary, then it's not an accident. That would be a list of things that would need to be present. It would need to be the right mattress, the right pillows, the right sheets, the right blankets. All of that adds up to, I love this bed, or
Right.
it's only where I sleep.
Do you have a favorite?
Mattress? Yeah, actually. Summerhill and Bischoff is a boutique brand that Ortho Mattress does that, I'm a huge consumer of mattresses, probably buy 30 or 40 a year, and I get rave reviews from everybody that we sell that mattress to that they just love it.
Wow.
It's a very personal thing how you,
Right.
what you find comfortable in a bed.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm shopping for a new one, so for myself. So that's good to know. I'll write that down. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
What a pleasure.
It is such a pleasure to have you and to get to know you a little bit better. Again, I'm a big fan of your work. And do you have anything that you have coming up or that you want to promote or anything along those lines?
I'm going to be featured in an episode of Clutter Bravado.
Yeah, that's
Watch for that.
I love it. Thank you so much. And we're having lunch. Let's do
Great.
it. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David.